Hello, hi. So Melissa Lenczewski. I'm from Northern Illinois University, and I'm going to be talking about my research that I did as part of my Fulbright ASEAN Research Scholarship. Talking about research that I did on groundwater contamination, looking at emerging contaminants in Cambodia and Thailand, and just have my map of Southeast Asia in case you don't know where the countries are. In Southeast Asia, there's a lot of issues with groundwater contamination and surface water pollution. So in Cambodia, we looked at impacts of urbanization and lack of wastewater treatment plants. And in Thailand, we're looking at landfills and animal husbandry areas. So in Cambodia, it's the biggest part of this is how fast the city is growing. And so we looked at what's called Bong Chang Ek Natural Wetland, which acts as their wastewater treatment plant for the city of Phnom Penh. This is done with the Royal University of Phnom Penh and the Institute of Technology of Cambodia. So the city of Phnom Penh has had massive urbanization since, just skyscrapers going up everywhere. But the problem is they do not have a single wastewater treatment plant. They're just building one right now. So all of the sewage from the south side of the city goes into this giant wetland that then feeds into the Basak River and also the Mekong River. So in infinite wisdom of the government there, they have decided to fill in the wetland to add in area for massive urbanization. And so you can see from these pictures on the bottom here, this is 2014, 2017, and 2023, where they're putting sand that they're mining from the river, from the Mekong River into the wetland to fill it in and then build skyscrapers, malls, all over the area. And so we started the study when they just started some of this impact. And then we've been looking at the changes in water quality and along this area. So, in an ideal system, a wetland works great for treating wasteland, treating our waste. But in Phnom Penh, they should have this wetland, but they're cutting it off right now. And so they're just having the raw sewage that goes through a metal grate, and that's it. And then it gets discharged into the Basak River. So throughout the city of Phnom Penh, there are these open sewer canals. You can see all the microplastics, which is one of the parts that we're looking at in here. All of the waste and everything from the city goes into these open sewer canals that then feed into the wetland. So this is the area of the wetland. There is calls for the beginning of a wastewater treatment plant. They're putting in a pilot plant right now, right in this area. So there is some planning that is going on, but it is not complete yet. So let's see if this works. I don't know if this will work. Nope, it's not going to work real well. Maybe it is. And then that ended at the person's homes that are in that area that are being taken over by this raw sewage. So we investigated this sewer lake and we went through it. And one of the things that is in there is farming. So there is floating agriculture where on top of the raw sewage, and for morning glory soup and also the spinach, they use that organic material in there. And so it's also decreasing the amount of areas for the agriculture. They put pesticides and herbicides indiscriminately all over the area because they go to the market and they ask for things and they just spray it out. And so this is us spraying, and you can kind of see the impact of this agricultural area on the communities in the region, and then just the fast growing city coming up to it. The effluent from it comes into it, and then they're building this wastewater treatment plant right now to handle just a small portion of all of the waste from the city. And then this is just a picture from 2017 versus 2023. We're standing in the same location. You can see the city in the background now. The city has just moved up to the area, and that's just a mall right there. And then we sampled at the effluent at the end of the river where there's a lot of fishing that goes on in that particular region. So what did we find out in there? So some of the things that we did look for was heavy metal concentrations. We did find arsenic and manganese and iron in there. The tap water for the city is safe to drink, so that was really good. We were seeing sewage inside of there, a lot of organics, and so we are testing right now the antibiotics and pesticides within inside of this raw sewage to see how much of it is getting into the groundwater wells that we sampled throughout this region. We do see dilution with rainwater during the wet season. So during the wet season, there's a lot more water that's coming into here, and we're seeing dilution along with that. And in dry seasons, we're seeing really high concentrations of heavy metals from aluminum, tin, manganese, iron, and arsenic inside of all the drinking water wells for the rural communities that live inside of this, around this area and farm inside of this lake. So what we're doing right now is we are sampled a lot of the groundwater wells for microplastics. And if you saw the talk just before this about from the Agilent, the LDIR, we just got one this year. And so the samples are being finished up this week for microplastics. We're also looking for pesticides inside of there. The samples are all just being analyzed right now. I just got back from all of this. And we are going to be doing all of the treatment and looking at this water samples in there and then do some geochemical modeling to see what is this impact of this massive urbanization in Cambodia. The other project that we did was in Thailand. And so in Thailand, we were looking at agrochemicals, illegal dumping, and landfills and urbanization. So in Thailand, 70% of the water is used for agriculture, is used for rice. Thailand is the largest exporter of rice in the world. And the central region around Bangkok is subsiding because of so much groundwater withdrawal that has happened over the years that they've now developed the Department of Groundwater Resources in within the country to be able to look at water like the subsidence issues and everything, but they really are not looking at water quality and looking for any of the emerging contaminants that we're talking about today. And so this is part of what we're trying to do, is to see what's inside of the groundwater, especially in the areas surrounding Bangkok. So I worked with Mahidol University and their Faculty of Environmental Resources. And Bunyarak is now come to NIU as a graduate student. So she was a student I met when I was in Thailand. So we were looking at antibiotics from animal husbandry. So I'll show some of those pictures into there, and then dumps that were occurring all over the area for microplastics, and seeing if that's getting into the two different water wells that are in the area. So the Department of Water Resources has established a series of wells to look for subsidence. So they put in water level meters, and they've put in these a shallow and a deep well throughout the entire area around Bangkok. And so we decided to go into there and to sample the already established wells for a series of different chemicals. So we found the wells, then we would get access to them. So we identified areas that we were really interested in. So this is a large poultry farm that is in the region. And we also looked at fish farming. And this right here, this is a landfill right next to these ponds, or where the fish farming is occurring. So each one of these areas where they're digging out is just filled with fish. And you can see it all throughout this area. And they surround this landfill that is more of a dump. That we would call it, it's more of a dump than like a sanitary landfill we have in the United States. And I'll show some pictures of that. So we sampled some community wells. So we would talk to the local officials. We sampled their community water wells. Then we went out to each of the wells. There was one shallow and one deep well at each location. Part of the problem we had when we first started doing this project, we were looking for the microplastics using just visualization, and we kept finding blue plastic from the blue PVC pipe that's in there. So we do know that that's one of the issues that we're having to deal with, is this blue PVC pipe. One of the well samples, this was a dump. This says in Thai, it says, please do not dump your trash here. But people dumped right along next to, and you can kind of see the two blue wells in this picture here of the two sampling sites that we were looking at. We would then open up the wells. There was no locks or keys or anything like that. It was just a cap on top of a 6-inch diameter well. And then this is the landfill or the dump that we are working next to. And then these are the fish ponds that are immediately adjacent to the landfill. There's lots of eutrophication. The smell is pretty strong in this particular region. So some of our preliminary results that we've got in here, the municipal waters did not have any issues. We did see that the shallow and deep wells did have different amounts of contamination. The shallow wells were the more contaminated. They were very high specific conductivity to them, so there was a lot of salt in there, while the deeper wells did not have that issue. The shallow wells also had a lot of lead, uranium, selenium, and manganese. We did not find arsenic in those, but we also did find phosphates and nitrates inside of them, inside of the shallow wells that we did not find inside of the deeper wells in that area. So what are some of our next steps? We're going back again in a couple weeks here to go back to Thailand to finish up this. So we sampled this area, especially near the fish farms and the poultry farms, for antibiotics. And we were looking at the groundwater to see if that is affecting any of their shallow groundwater in there. And we're doing an inter-laboratory comparison. So what we're doing here in the United States to what they're doing at Mahidol University. And then all the microplastics that are in there. And then we're repeating the samples, trying to compare the results that we're getting in Mahidol to NIU. And so coming soon is the LDIR with the microplastics. So this is our LDIR that just got a couple months ago put in. All the samples from Cambodia, while we were in country, we sampled the water and then we put them onto the gold filters that Lou mentioned before. We put them onto the gold filters and we've been running them. They take about a half a day to run through the LDIR, and we get a lot of data. We're finding a lot of tires. That's one of the things that we're finding a lot of is rubber. When we exclude out the blue PVC pipe, we do see a lot of rubber inside of these samples. And my grad student's going back in a couple weeks here to finish up the sampling and to be able to do more analysis for microplastics. And then we're doing in conjunction with SIUE, which is Southern Illinois University Edwardsville, Kevin Tucker. He's got a student who took all of our samples for antibiotics and pesticides and is analyzing them right now. And so she's, trying to finish up all of that for us. So part of this research was also for capacity building. Can we do training with students and develop projects with Thailand? There's a lot of other issues with groundwater in Thailand and Cambodia. Managed aquifer recharge is another issue. They're using tires. They're digging holes and putting tires into them and then pouring water into that during wet season to help bank the water. Not a good idea. And there's a lot of transboundary issues and lack of regulations, especially with a lot of the emerging contaminants. And with that, I will take any questions that you have.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. We do have time for one question. Nope, we got two.
Okay. The first one is, what kind of antibiotics are you monitoring?
I'm just gonna go back up to the beginning here. So the antibiotics that we are monitoring for are, it's a range of them. I'm trying to remember all the different ones that we're looking at, but all the ones that we were doing were ones that are typically used for fish farming. So we had done some literature searches and looked for the different ones that are generally done for animal husbandry. So we're not looking for the human ones.
Great. And then
I can't remember the list.
Sarah, time for the last question as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Thank you for your talk. Have you had any interest or engagement of the local management agencies in this project?
Yeah, so one of the things that while I was over there, I did not know this until recently, the US and Thai governments have had one of the longest running treaties between the two countries. Over 100 years, we've had relationships with the Thai government. And so we have these joint commissions on science and technology. And so during the US-Thai intergovernment agencies, where I was talking to all of the heads of all of the agencies from the US and from Thailand, I gave a presentation about what got groundwater issues in there. And so the Department of Groundwater Resources is very interested in this, and with the USGS to look at some of the groundwater issues, especially in Thailand. We also give all of our results to the local municipalities. So we've been working with some of the local municipalities and providing them with the results that we have. The next steps are to be able to make it somewhat on a website. So we're looking at different ways that we can present it, and having my graduate student who's from Thailand, she's been working on trying to help, how can we translate some of the results and the results that we're finding into Thai language.
That's great. Okay. Oh, we do have one comment here. Just says, a suggestion, conducting a non-target analysis will be helpful to identify antibiotics.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Melissa.